Do you want peace? Then stop talking so much and start silently eliminating what's stealing your calm. You don't need to announce it. You don't need to explain it. You just need to decide. Because true transformation doesn't happen with shouts or promises. It happens in secret when you choose to let go of what no longer fits the life you want. This isn't a message for those looking for excuses. It's for those who are ready. Ready to quiet the noise, clean up the internal clutter, and become their own answer. Stay until the end. Because if you apply this, your life will begin to change without you having to say a single word. Before we begin, I want you to do something powerful. Go to the comments and write this phrase with all your intention. Today I begin to let go in silence. I am stoic. Let it not just be a comment. Let it be a seal, a firm decision, a pact with yourself, because writing it is the first step towards your change. It's etching it into your mind, into your identity, into your new way of living. Do it now, and let your transformation begin. The silent transformation. Eliminating 11 things that steal your peace. 1. Eliminate everything that prevents you from prioritizing yourself. Stop living to please everyone. That silent habit, disguised as kindness or responsibility, is stealing your peace and pushing you away from yourself. You're not here to fit into others' molds or to become the character others expect you to be. You're here to discover yourself, respect yourself, and build your own path. And every time you say yes to what you don't want, you're saying no to yourself. That internal betrayal weighs heavily. Sooner or later, the bill arrives in the form of anxiety, dissatisfaction, chronic fatigue, or a sense of emptiness you don't understand where it comes from. You don't need to justify your existence by meeting others' expectations. In fact, doing so only distances you from what you truly came to do. It's exhausting to live acting like someone else, adapting to what society, your family, or your friends expect. And it's not about becoming selfish. It's about being honest, about not losing yourself in the crowd out of fear of judgment. When you stop living for others, you start breathing from a more authentic place. Your body notices it, your mind lightens, and your soul stops screaming in silence. Pause. Look at yourself honestly. How many decisions in your life have you made out of fear of disappointing? How many times have you said yes just to avoid conflict? How many times have you denied your true needs for fear of not being enough or of being unloved? It's time to stop running from your truth, to reconnect with what truly matters to you. Because no success is worth it if you lose yourself in the process. No one else's goal deserves your inner exhaustion. Living for others is like building a house with someone else's instructions, but on your land. Sooner or later, that structure collapses because it's not aligned with your foundation. And when that happens, existential crises, doubts, and the feeling that everything you achieved isn't enough set in. Don't punish yourself for that. Be grateful that you can now start from yourself with more clarity, more awareness, and with a firm decision not to betray yourself anymore. Remember, authenticity is not an act of rebellion. It is an act of self. Studies in positive psychology are clear. People who live authentically, who make decisions aligned with their internal identity and not with external approval, experience higher levels of satisfaction, motivation, and emotional well-being. That doesn't mean they don't face conflicts, but they face them with greater inner solidity. Their peace doesn't depend on the external climate, and that, in this world, is a huge blessing. Do the exercise of writing down your goals, your habits, your recent decisions, and ask yourself, am I doing this because it truly represents me, or because I expect external recognition? Start filtering your life through authenticity. You don't have to change everything at once. Just take one step today. Say no to something that doesn't represent you and yes to something that honors you. That is the greatest revolution. Choosing yourself without fear. According to Stoicism, if you want to achieve inner freedom, learn to disdain others' opinions. Epictetus reminded us that we cannot control what others think, but we can control what we think and choose ourselves. True freedom is born when you stop living according to others' applause or criticism and start guiding yourself by your reason, your virtue, and your conscience. You don't need to be understood by everyone. You just need to be consistent with yourself. And no, not everyone will understand. Some will get annoyed when you stop being the one who always gives in. Others will tell you that you've changed, but that's okay, because changing isn't betraying anyone. It's returning to yourself. And whoever truly loves you will love your most honest version, not your most obedient one. Stop trying to belong in places where you do you and fit and start building spaces where you can breathe without having to pretend. So today, begin to practice the courage of being yourself. Even if your voice trembles, even if not everyone applauds, even if you sometimes feel alone. Because living from your truth is the shortest path to inner peace. Stop running after others' dreams and start walking towards your own. The world needs your authentic self, not your adapted copy. Because true fulfillment is not in being accepted, but in being yourself without asking permission. 2. Eliminate toxic habits with the same force with which you want to succeed. Every day you repeat a toxic habit, you are silently sabotaging your peace of mind, your energy, and your purpose. You don't notice it immediately, but that small gesture you repeat, that constant complaint, that excess of junk food, That procrastination disguised as deserved rest is digging a deep hole where your best self is hidden. Today I want to speak clearly to you. If you don't consciously choose which habits to feed, your mind will choose for you. And it doesn't always choose the best. The comfortable is often the destructive. What you postpone now becomes a heavier burden tomorrow, and every time you repeat it, it takes deeper root in you. It doesn't take major addictions or extreme behaviors to harm you. Sometimes, the most toxic things are the most everyday. The phone you check every 5 minutes, the social media that consumes your willpower, that negative conversation you replay in your mind without realizing it. All of that is an energy leak. It robs you of clarity, diminishes your focus, and makes you emotionally vulnerable. But you weren't born to live drained, distracted, or uninspired. You were born to have mastery, purpose, and connection with yourself. The key is to replace, not just eliminate. Science supports this. Negative habits are transformed most effectively when you don't just cut them off, but when you substitute them with positive ones. Your brain needs a new pathway, a healthy alternative. If you say, "I'm going to stop procrastinating," you'll be left only with guilt. But if you say, "Every time I feel tempted to get distracted, I'm going to take 3 deep breaths and regain focus," then you're retraining your mind. That's how the system is reprogrammed. Stoicism reminds us that mastering our impulses and choosing virtuous habits is the path to true freedom and inner strength. It's training your character from consciousness. Ask yourself this question. What habit are you feeding that is hurting you? Maybe it's something small, but repeated daily. Maybe you eat out of anxiety, postpone your projects, fill yourself with digital noise. Then observe, don't judge, just acknowledge, and then act. A destructive habit is not eliminated with guilt or hatred, but with presence and decision. The replacement must make sense to you. Don't aim for perfection, just aim for awareness. If you eat out of anxiety, try breathing, writing down what you feel, giving yourself 5 minutes before deciding. If you procrastinate, commit to small blocks of time where you only do one thing. If you take refuge in your phone to avoid feeling, go for a walk without stimuli. Look, the sky returns to you every time you choose from consciousness. You are gaining ground over the inertia that controlled you. You are reclaiming your personal power. Visualize your life as a garden. Every habit is a seed. Toxic seeds also grow if you water them, even faster. But if you choose to pull them out and plant new ones, little by little the garden changes, and one day, without realizing it, you wake up with more energy, more peace, and more focus. Not because everything changed suddenly, but because you changed in silence. I want to invite you today to make a real commitment. Choose a habit that no longer has a place in your life, one that, limits your potential. It doesn't matter if you've tried before. Today you have more awareness. Today you have more tools. And today you have the opportunity to replace it with something that honors you. Write it down, declare it. Start with the simplest thing. A walk, 5 minutes of silence, a better food choice, a moment to disconnect from the noise. Transformation doesn't come with perfect motivation. It comes with repeated decision. If you fail one day, it doesn't mean you're back at the start. Just pick it up again. Every day is a new possibility. Changing a habit is changing your destiny, because your habits are a reflection of who you choose to be. And remember this, you are not broken. You are in process. You don't lack strength, only practice. Your best version already lives within you. You just have to start choosing for it from today. 3. Eliminate unnecessary goals to make space for the truly important ones. Many times what weighs you down most isn't what you do, but why you do it. There are goals that seem noble, inspiring, courageous, but if you pause for a second and look deeper, you realize that they don't come from the soul, but from fear. Fear of not being enough, fear of judgment, fear of being left behind. So, without realizing it, you fill your life with goals that don't belong to you. You wake up every day with the pressure to move forward, achieve, produce. But all of that isn't leading you where you truly want to go. It's leading you where others said you should be. And that's exhausting. No motivation can sustain an imposed goal. No energy can endure if the path you follow is based on appearing, competing, or proving your worth. You were not created to be a copy of what the system expects of you. You were created to express your authentic purpose. And that purpose only flourishes when you have the courage to eliminate the unnecessary. What gets in the way? What weighs you down senselessly? Goals aligned with the ego push you into a race with no finish line. It's never enough. It's never the right time. You always lack something. But goals aligned with your purpose have a different energy. They don't exhaust you. They enlighten you. They don't enslave you. They free you. Because it's not about achieving to be someone, but about expressing who you already are. And that changes everything. It's scientifically proven that intrinsic motivation, the one born from within, generates greater well-being, persistence, and satisfaction, while extrinsic motivation, which seeks external validation, leaves you empty even if you achieve what you wanted. That's why there are people who achieve fame, money, status, and yet feel lost. Because they climbed a mountain that wasn't theirs, because they pursued a goal that never came from their truth. Today, I want to invite you to pause, look at your goals, honestly, Why do you pursue them? Where do they come from? Who made you believe that was necessary to be worthy? If you can't answer from your soul, perhaps that goal isn't yours. Perhaps it's time to let it go. Letting it go isn't giving up. It's freeing yourself. It's having the courage to choose another direction. One that feels good to you, not one that only makes you look good. Stoicism reminds us that peace is not found in having more, but in needing less. That true power lies in recognizing what is under your control and letting go of what is not. And that includes letting go of goals that only feed your anxiety or expectations, or your wounded ego. The wise person doesn't chase success. They chase meaning, because they know that a soul at peace is worth more than 1,000 accumulated achievements. Do the exercise. Take a few minutes to write down all your current goals, all of them. Then, one by one, ask yourself, does this goal come from a genuine desire or from the fear of not being accepted? Does it bring me closer to the person I want to be, or does it take me away from myself? Do I feel enthusiasm when I imagine it, or do I feel obligation? And eliminate without guilt, erase without fear. Because on the other side of that empty space will come a clarity you have yet felt in years. And there, with fewer goals, but more soul, you will truly begin to live. You don't need 100 objectives. You only need one true one. One that gives you meaning even on difficult days. One that doesn't waver with others' opinions. One that, even if it's not fulfilled as you expected, leaves you with peace. That is the right goal. And to find it, sometimes the first step isn't to move forward, but to stop, look within, and let go. Don't live collecting achievements to fill a void. Live expressing what is already full within you. Because when you walk from purpose, every step weighs less. And when you let go of the unnecessary, you finally make space for the essential. 5. Eliminate the need for revenge. Don't get trapped by what you can no longer change. There are wounds that don't bleed externally but remain open internally. And many times we believe that protecting ourselves means constantly remembering what was done to us, what hurt us, what wasn't fair. We think that clinging to resentment is a way to stay strong, to avoid falling again, to prevent being harmed again. But the truth is that resentment doesn't protect. It poisons. It doesn't block the damage. It prolongs it. And you were not created to live tied to what has already happened, but to move forward with a free heart. Clinging to resentment is like carrying an invisible weight that accompanies you everywhere. Even if you smile, even if you go on with your life, that weight is felt in your body, in your mind, in the way you see the world. It's like a chain that keeps you anchored to the past, robbing you of energy, clarity, and preventing you from enjoying the present. And the most painful thing is that many times the person who hurt you no longer even thinks about you, but you are still there, trapped in a memory that hurts you every time you relive it. To forgive does not mean to justify what happened. It does not mean to say it was okay. It does not mean to forget. To forgive is to recognize that you deserve to be at peace, even if the other person never apologizes. It is to let go of the desire for revenge. Not because the other person deserves it, but because you no longer want to carry that burden. It is to look at yourself with compassion and say, I cannot change what happened, but I can change what I do with what I feel. Science has shown that people who practice forgiveness have lower levels of anxiety, fewer symptoms of depression, and greater life satisfaction. Freeing yourself from resentment not only soothes the soul but also heals the body. Forgiveness is not emotional weakness. It is a courageous and deeply intelligent decision. It is medicine you take yourself, even if the wound was caused by someone else. I know there are resentments that seem impossible to let go of. Situations that marked your history, words that still hurt, betrayals that left scars. But I also know that as long as you continue to hold on to that anger, that pain, that resentment, you cannot hold on to your peace. You cannot hold on to your dreams, because all your inner space is occupied by something you can no longer change. Do this exercise. Think of someone you still resent. Don't judge yourself for feeling it. Just observe it. Ask yourself, how does this resentment make me feel? What energy does it take from me? What parts of my life are affected by this? And then imagine what your life would be like if you let go of that burden. Not for the other person, but for yourself, for your rest, for your clarity, for your freedom. Forgiving doesn't always mean reconciling. Sometimes it also involves setting boundaries, closing cycles, deciding not to go back, but doing so from peace, not from anger. Stoicism teaches us that we do not control what others do, but we do control what we choose to feel, hold on to, and let go. That our peace cannot depend on someone repenting, but on our ability not to allow an offense to become an internal prison. As Marcus Aurelius said, the best way to avenge yourself is not to be like the one who harmed you. And that is the true victory. Not that the other suffers, but that you are well. Don't cling to resentment for fear of appearing weak. There is no greater strength than that of one who can let go without wishing to destroy. Whoever lets go does not forget. They transcend, elevate, learn, and continue. Because clinging to resentment is repeating the wound. But forgiving is closing the story without closing the heart. Today you can choose to be free. Today you can take that experience and turn it into a lesson. not a punishment, because you deserve to walk lightly. You deserve to build without ghosts. You deserve to look forward without the past dragging you down. Forgiveness does not change what happened, but it changes what is to come, and that is in your hands. 6. Eliminate that inner voice that turns everything into unnecessary worry. Sometimes it's not what happens to you that exhausts you. It's what you think about what happens to you. Dwelling over and over on the same idea, the same doubt. That what if, why did they say that? What if I'm wrong? What starts as an attempt to understand ends up as a mental trap that won't let you live in peace. Overthinking is noise. Noise disguised as analysis, logic, prudence, but deep down, it's fear. It's paralyzed fear that repeats itself in circular thoughts. Anna lived like this. She didn't sleep well. She disconnected from conversations. She walked down the street and her mind was trapped in a scenario that might never happen. She analyzed every gesture, every word, every past decision. She sought certainties where there were only possibilities. But she wasn't smarter for doing so. She was just more tired, more anxious, more distant from the present until she understood something that changed her life. Overthinking is not the same as thinking better, and sometimes the best decision comes not from thinking more, but from stopping. The overthinking cycle has a simple formula: thought plus emotion plus more thought. An idea generates an emotion, and that emotion feeds more ideas. And so you enter a loop that doesn't stop. But you can break it. And the first step is to observe, not to fight against the thought, but to look at it with awareness. Is what I'm thinking helping me or draining me? Does it provide solutions or just trap me in fear? Just with that question, you begin to regain control. Many believe that thinking a lot is being cautious, but true wisdom is not thinking non-stop, but knowing when to stop thinking. When your mind becomes a dead-end spiral, your body tenses, your sleep is disturbed, your energy drops, all because your attention is hijacked by scenarios that don't exist. You are physically present, but emotionally you are trapped elsewhere, and that disconnects you from everything that truly matters: your peace, your relationships, your ability to act. When you notice yourself falling into overthinking, stop, breathe, feel the ground under your feet. Return to your body, to your breath, to the here and now. Ask yourself, can I solve this now? If you can't, let it go. If you can, act, but don't keep spinning in the same idea without moving forward. Because every time you choose to act, even if it's a small step, you break the illusion of mental control and enter the reality where things truly change. Stoicism reminds us that what is not under your control should not occupy your mind, that thinking what is necessary is a virtue, but thinking without limit is a prison. Marcus Aurelius said, "Tranquility comes when you stop trying to control the uncontrollable." And overthinking is often that, an unconscious attempt at absolute control, to anticipate, prevent, avoid any possible pain. But life doesn't work that way. Life doesn't demand perfection from you. It demands presence. You can start today. You can observe your thoughts as if they were clouds. They come, you see them, and you let them pass. Don't get caught up in all of them. Don't turn them into truths just because they're insistent. Your mind doesn't always tell the truth. Sometimes it just repeats what it learned in fear. But you don't have to live by that script. You can write a new one. More conscious, more free. Make space for silence, for not having all the answers, for living a little lighter. Not everything needs to be understood, analyzed, or solved right now. Sometimes you just need to breathe, let go, and trust, because the more present you are, the less you need to over. Clarity doesn't come from thinking more, but from thinking better. And that's only possible when you're at peace. Breaking the cycle of overthinking isn't a grandiose act. It's a daily practice. It's learning to let go of excessive control and regain the power to act from calm, because your mind can be your ally or your prison, and you decide what to make of it. 7. Eliminate inertia. Keep moving to revitalize body and mind when you feel mentally stuck. When emotions weigh you down, or you feel you've lost your way, sometimes all you need isn't a grand solution, but to move. Yes, move. Get up from where you are. Activate your body even with a small gesture. Take a step. Stretch. Breathe deeply. Because the body has memory, and when it remains inactive for too long, your mind also shuts down. What doesn't move gets blocked, and what gets blocked starts to weigh heavily. That's why it's so important to remember that moving isn't just a physical action. It's a way to return to life. James understood this one day when he couldn't take it anymore. He had been feeling disconnected, unmotivated, and lacking energy for months. He thought he needed complicated answers, a radical change, a magical transformation. But what he really needed was to reconnect with his body. He started with something simple, going for a 10-minute walk every morning without music, without direction, just walking. And in that minimal practice, he found something he didn't expect: presence. He started listening to himself again, feeling his breath, looking at the world around him. He didn't solve all his problems, but he regained the power to move forward, and that changed everything. Moving is an act of You don't need extreme workouts or perfect routines. Just honoring your body every day is enough. A conscious stretch upon waking, a pause to breathe deeply between tasks, a walk to oxygenate your mind. All of that seems simple, but it's transformative because movement breaks rigidity, unlocks stagnant energy, and reminds you that you're alive. And when the body remembers it's alive, the mind also awakens. Sedentarism doesn't just affect your physical health, it also affects your emotional and spiritual health. When you spend too much time without moving, you start to overthink, to feel heavier, more disconnected. The body, accumulating tension, becomes a silent prison. Therefore, moving is not a luxury. It's a vital necessity. Not to look better, but to feel better. Not to meet external expectations, but to stay aligned with who you are. Stoicism also talks about action, about not getting stuck in passive thoughts, but about taking control of the moment. A clear mind needs an awakened body. A full life needs circulating energy. You cannot solve your mental dilemmas if you ignore what your body is asking for. Sometimes the answer isn't in thinking more, it's in moving differently. Make it easy. Start today. Maybe you wake up and take 3 slow breaths with your eyes closed. Maybe before bed you'll stretch for 2 minutes. Maybe during the day you give yourself permission to go for a walk without your phone. The important thing isn't how much you do, but that you do it with intention. Let movement not be just automatic but sacred. Because every time you move consciously, you are cultivating health, presence, and inner power. And it's no coincidence that after moving, everything seems clearer. It's your body sending you a message. Thanks for not forgetting me. Your body doesn't need you to punish it. It needs you to listen to it, to use it as a way to reconnect with yourself. Because when you move, you not only revitalize muscles and organs, you revitalize your soul. You open spaces where there was only blockage before. You make room for new ideas, more balanced emotions, a different energy that couldn't flow before because you were immobile, trapped in your mind. So if today you feel disconnected, tired, or lost, don't overthink. Just move, even if you do or not feel like it, even if it seems useless, even if you feel it est a little, because sometimes a small bodily action can open a huge emotional door, and in that movement you start to recover yourself. One step, one breath, one stretch at a time. That's more than enough to start healing. 8. Eliminate the damage of constant comparison. You are your only measure. Nothing drains your energy more than constantly looking sideways to see how others' lives are going. You're moving forward, you're growing, you're doing what you can. But instead of recognizing it, you compare yourself. You see someone who seems to be going faster, achieving more, having more, and without realizing it, you start to believe that you're not doing enough. But it's not true. What you're doing is valuable. It's just that when you compare yourself, you stop seeing it, and that slowly erodes yourself. Constant comparison is a silent trap because sometimes it doesn't seem bad. It seems like motivation. It seems like wanting to improve. But if you analyze it closely, it's just a disguised way of feeling less. And the most unfair thing is that you compare yourself without knowing the whole story. You look at the tip of someone else's iceberg and pit it against your own wounds, your doubts, your mistakes. And of course, you're going to lose that battle. No one wins when the point of reference is something external and unattainable. No one feels good when they use someone else's life to judge their own. It's necessary to remember this. Each person is on a completely different path, with different timings, with different stories, resources, wounds, and learnings. No one has your story. No one has your soul. No one can take your place in this world. So why demand that your life be like another's? Why devalue what you are just because someone else's life seems bigger or prettier from the outside? Science has shown that people who constantly compare themselves to others have lower levels of self-esteem, more symptoms of anxiety, and a greater feeling of failure. And not because they aren't achieving things, but because they don't see them. Because they are so focused on looking outward that they have forgotten to look inward. And when you stop looking inward, you lose connection with your essence. You forget what you've already overcome, what you have built, the steps you took, even when everything was against you. Every time you feel that need to compare yourself, stop, breathe, look at your own path. Ask, who was I a year ago? What have I achieved, however small? What have I learned in silence that no one else knows? And start valuing that, because that's where your true power lies. In your silent evolution, in the battles no one applauded, but you won. Stoicism teaches us that we shouldn't waste time wishing for others' lives, but focusing on living our own with virtue, courage, and clarity. That the true enemy isn't outside, but in the internal narrative that tells us we're not enough. Changing that narrative isn't easy, but it's possible, and it starts by changing the question. Instead of, why am I not like him or her, start asking, how can I be truer to myself today? That's the comparison that truly transforms. Start celebrating yourself more. Applaud your achievements, even if no one else sees them. Recognize what you do well. Value your effort. Don't wait for everything to be perfect to feel proud. You don't need to compare yourself to anyone to know you're moving forward. The only comparison that makes sense is with yourself, with your yesterday self, with your own growth. And if you see someone else succeeding, instead of feeling envy, turn that emotion into inspiration. Admire without negating yourself. Be grateful that someone else shows you what's also possible for you, but without losing sight of your essence, your rhythms, your priorities. Because when you stop comparing yourself, you start connecting with your value, with your process, with your purpose. So today I invite you to choose something different to honor your path. However slow to look inward, however uncomfortable to build from within yourself. Even if the outside screams something else, because your life doesn't need to resemble any other. It just needs to be lived with truth, and that is enough. 9. Eliminate procrastination. Every second counts. Procrastination is not rest. It is not strategy. It is not prudence. It is a silent form of self-sabotage that slowly extinguishes your energy, your confidence, and your dreams. Procrastination disguises itself as many things. Perfectionism, tiredness, lack of time, waiting for the right moment. But deep down it is just fear. Fear of failing, fear of not being ready, fear of facing the real effort involved in moving forward. And while you wait, while you plan and rethink, life goes on, your ideas cool down, your goals drift away, your vision becomes a burden instead of a motivation. That perfect moment you're waiting for will never come. It doesn't exist. There will always be something you don't know, something missing, something that could go wrong. But if you don't move, if you don't do something today, however small, you get trapped in an illusion that only delays what could be growing right now. Moving forward doesn't require certainty. It requires a decision. Just that, the decision to start, to take a step, to break free from the autopilot that keeps you paused. Science confirms it. When you take a small step towards something you desire, your brain releases dopamine, a neurotransmitter associated with pleasure and motivation. And that creates an impulse that helps you continue. You don't have to wait to be motivated to act. Act, and motivation will come later, because energy doesn't come from waiting. It comes from movement. And that movement can be minimal, but if it's constant, it transforms everything. Think about that project you've been postponing for weeks, months, or even years. Maybe it's writing something, starting a routine, learning a skill, making a difficult decision. You know you need it, you know you want it, but you keep putting it off until you have more time, when you're more inspired, when everything is in order. And the truth is that none of that will happen if you do not decide to break the inertia, because it's not time that's lacking. It's commitment to your future. Today can be the day everything changes, but only if you do something about it. You don't need to finish everything. You don't need to do it perfectly. You just need to start. 5 minutes. One action, one written word, one message sent, one step taken, and repeat it tomorrow. There's the secret, not in doing a lot, but in doing something today. Stoicism teaches us that the only thing we have under control is the present moment, and that virtue is built not with beautiful thoughts, but with real actions. Procrastination is the surrender of our current power, but acting, even in the midst of chaos, is an act of courage, because it shows that you're not waiting for the world to give you permission to live your purpose. You give it to yourself, and that changes everything. Every time you choose to act, even when you don't feel like it, you're strengthening yourself. You're telling your mind, I am capable, and that builds something much more powerful than talent or knowledge. Confidence. Confidence comes from movement, from seeing yourself fulfilling what you said you would do, from stopping dreaming about possibilities and starting to turn them into facts. Do it today, not tomorrow, not later. Today. Think about that thing you've been avoiding. Write it down, look at it, and choose the smallest action you can take right now. Maybe just organizing materials, maybe sending an email, maybe setting your alarm to wake up earlier. No matter how small it is, what matters is that you break the pattern of eternal waiting. Every day you postpone, the dream cools. Every day you act, the dream comes alive. You don't need to have everything figured out. You just need to be willing to start without guarantees. But with faith, the faith that every step you take brings you closer. The faith that you can create your path if you decide to stop waiting and start building today. 10. Eliminate the obsession with chasing happiness. Cultivate it from within. The reason so many people feel empty, even when they have everything, is because they have confused happiness with a goal, with a place to reach, with a permanent state that appears when everything is in order. But happiness doesn't work that way. It's not a trophy to be won. It's not a goal to be conquered. It's a consequence, a side effect of being connected with what you do, of feeling aligned with who you are, of moving forward with purpose, even if you don't have all the answers. Directly chasing happiness is one of the fastest ways to distance yourself from it, because when you seek it as an end, you start to obsess about how you feel all the time. And if you don't feel happy, you think you're failing, that something is wrong, that you have to do more, buy more, change more. And so you enter a cycle where nothing is enough, because any uncomfortable emotion becomes an obstacle to your supposed happiness, and you end up fighting against your own human experience. True happiness doesn't appear when everything is perfect. It appears when you are present in your process, when you do something that matters to you, even if it's difficult, when you are in motion, when there is purpose, when there is surrender, And the most interesting thing is that science backs this up. Positive psychology has shown that people who seek meaning, who focus on meaningful goals, and who commit to their values, experience much higher levels of well-being than those who pursue happiness directly. It is no coincidence that many people feel more fulfilled when they are in the midst of a project, when they are creating, helping, solving, fighting for something that matters to them. There, in the midst of the effort, that silent peace appears, that spark that tells you, this is worthwhile. That is authentic happiness. It's not euphoria, it's not a constant state of joy. It's connection, it's meaning, it's presence. So stop constantly asking yourself if you're happy. That question is a trap. Instead, ask yourself, am I moving forward in something that matters to me? Am I aligned with what I value? Am I building, even if it's slow, even if it sometimes hurts? Because if the answer is yes, then you're doing well. Even if you don't feel butterflies in your stomach, even if not everything is perfect, because deep down, the happiness that endures doesn't feel like fireworks, it feels like tranquility. Stoicism reminds us that peace doesn't depend on what happens to us, but on how we respond to what happens to us, that we cannot control the emotions that arise, but we can choose where to put our attention. And if you are constantly focused on feeling happy, you are missing out on the power to act, to move, to build. The wise person doesn't seek happiness. They seek to live with virtue, and as a result, peace comes naturally. Make a change today. Stop asking yourself if you're already happy and start building something that makes you proud, something that has meaning, something that challenges your limits and connects you with others. Choose a goal, not because you think it will make you happy, but because it reflects who you are, and commit to the process. There will be days of tiredness, doubt, discomfort, but there will also be growth, and that silent, real growth is the ground where true happiness flourishes. Happiness isn't achieved, it's cultivated. It's the echo that remains when you do things well, when you live from your truth, when you give more than you expect to receive. Don't chase it because it's not in front of you. It's beneath your steps. When you walk with intention, it's in your present. When you live it with purpose, and when you stop looking for it, you finally find it. 11. Eliminate the victim mentality and take control of your life. There's something no one tells you, but you need to hear it. As long as you keep living from a victim mentality, you'll be trapped in a cycle that only repeats itself. Maybe you didn't choose what happened to you. Maybe it wasn't your fault. Maybe you were hurt, ignored, betrayed, or even abandoned. But staying there, in that place where everything is the fault of something or someone else, is the highest price you can pay. Because no matter how real your pain is, if you don't take responsibility for what you do with it, you remain paralyzed, and life doesn't wait. Taking responsibility doesn't mean blaming yourself for everything. It means deciding to stop putting your power outside, recognizing that even if you don't control what happens to you, you can control what you do from that point on. The victim mentality seeks comfort, seeks justification, seeks attention, but it never brings freedom, it never elevates you, it never transforms you. And you didn't come into the world to survive in complaint. You came to evolve through action. When you blame circumstances, you're unknowingly saying, I can't do anything. You're handing over the keys to your life to external factors. But the moment you say, this is difficult, but I choose how to respond, everything changes. You regain the rudder, you return to yourself, and you stop living according to what was done to you and start living according to what you choose to build. Psychology supports this. People who develop what's called an internal locus of control, that is, the belief that their actions influence their outcomes, have greater emotional well-being, are more resilient, and are more satisfied with their lives. Not because everything goes well for them, but because they know their power lies in their response, not in the excuse. I know it's easier to blame the environment. It's easier to say, I don't have time, no one supports me, this always happens to me. But as long as you say that, you're locking yourself in. And every time you repeat that story, the more you convince yourself that you can't change. But that story is just that, a narrative you can rewrite, not with empty words, but with concrete actions. Ask yourself this question: what is within my power to change? You don't need to change everything, just one thing, just one step. Maybe you can organize your day better. Maybe you can cut off a relationship that's hurting you. Maybe you can stop justifying yourself and start doing what you know you have to do. Don't wait for everything to be clear. Don't wait for someone to come rescue you. No one is going to fight for your life like you can. And that first step, however small, is an act of power. Stoicism reminds us that our freedom is not in what happens to us, but in how we respond. That humans were not made to surrender to fate, but to face it with virtue and inner strength. You are not weak for having been hurt, but you weaken yourself every time you give up acting. Action heals you. Action frees you. Action reminds you who you are. Look at yourself truly. In what part of your life are you acting like a victim? Where are you waiting for the world to change, but you're not moving? And instead of judging yourself, choose to do something different today, not tomorrow. Today you can make a different decision. Today you can take a step towards what does you good. Today you can choose not to repeat the story that keeps you limited. Stop surviving Start living with intention. You don't need to have everything figured out. You just need to take responsibility for yourself, for your actions, for your present, because in that act of taking responsibility, you reclaim the power you thought you lost. And when that happens, nothing and no one can stop you, because you are no longer a victim of your story, you are the author. If you've made it this far, it's no coincidence. That already says a lot about your commitment to change. Now reaffirm it, go to the comments and write, "Today I begin to let go in silence. I am stoic." Do it as an act of decision, as an invisible seal that marks the beginning of your transformation. Because if you stay silent, you eliminate what holds you back and remain firm. Your life will not only change, it will change automatically. And best of all, without having to explain anything to anyone.